This is where I'm having a little bit of an issue. So he's doing the sled push. He's a little upright, but it just doesn't look as aggressive. So on something like this movement, it's a good push and momentum. And he just looks like he's pushing a baby stroller. Hey GQ, this is Julian Smith. I'm a bodybuilder and a fitness personality. I'm at home, and this is the breakdown. First up, pain and gain.
There you go, yes. Come on, big man, work it, baby, come on. Let's go.
All right, so first thing, right, walking in this intro scene, you have guys training full range of motion, setting up the entire scene for like 90s bodybuilding. That guy doing that's a bodybuilder move. Like he was doing a hack squat, not bench pressing. So for Mark Wahlberg to come up there, looks like he's like obviously in this movie, the main trainer of this gym. Probably everybody likes him. You know, everyone's coming up saying hi. That's a common thing in bodybuilding. It almost shows how much power you have and control of that weight. So definitely like a bro gym move.
Because if you're willing to do the work, you can have anything.
The guy in the front with the white tank, he's deadlifting. The guy standing behind him is probably just encouraging him, and then he's got his set next. This is one of those bread and butter movements where no one's gonna be spotting. You either get it or you don't. Bodybuilding's been around since the early 1900s, but it became popular with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu and all those guys from like the pumping iron days. You have somebody like Arnold who has one of the greatest personalities that's ever existed. It makes being buff and big and muscular and being cool, like it's all one and the same. So in regards to these types of bodybuilders, I want more shoulders, I want better back, I want more traps up to my neck. These guys are just taking it to the next level of showing your physique and being judged on it.
Most people say they want to look better. Not everyone's willing to do whatever it takes to achieve it.
Mark Wahlberg walking in, sees his homie putting steroids in, and glorifying him. That's a total 90s thing, 80s thing. I would never expect to walk into a gym and see a guy stick a needle in his butt. That's just not how it is anymore. The reason why a lot of bodybuilders hop on steroids is because it helps you recover faster, helps you build muscle faster, helps you build a pretty gnarly physique, and that's really the only way you could build these types of looks. Me being a 6 foot, 210 pound guy, I couldn't naturally get to 275, 290 pounds lean, shredded, and step on stage. There's just a look you can't achieve as a natural bodybuilder, and that's where you would go in a direction elsewhere.
Schwarzenegger, am I right?
Back when I used to personal train, if somebody came to me and they said, hey, I just want to lose weight, I really don't want to look like a bodybuilder, that's one thing. If I had a client that was like, I want to look like Arnold freaking Schwarzenegger, like he just said, even if he's in his late 60s and, not trying that hard, but he's stoked about it, those are the clients you really like.
You know what I really don't like about weights?
What's that?
They're so heavy.
One of the hardest parts about being a personal trainer is letting those people know what their limits are. Most people don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You get a little bit of change in your physique, and that's all you really want, because when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're stoked, liking how you look is enough for most people.
I spot people for a living when you get right down to it. Gives the client security and a little extra help to push themselves harder.
All right, so right after this bench press set, we got a client jumping up, overly amped up about a vein that he thinks after the first day of training. And don't get me wrong, if you're like a lean person, you might start working out and seeing some progress pretty quick. But a lot of people going in there and having that intensity immediately, like you don't normally see that. One thing I do notice as he gets into this set moving forward, Mark Wahlberg seems to be looking off as he's doing a lot of his set instead of spotting. And if someone's paying you to help them, you should be more hands-on and paying attention to form. Not common with a personal trainer who cares about his clients.
To me, a cigarette boat was a thing drug dealers had, but we got it anyway. It cost a fortune. Named the puppy Love, L-U-V.
We got him going into a shoulder press here. Client's talking the entire time while he's doing the shoulder press. His head is turned like this, talking back to Mark Wahlberg, which is a great way to tweak yourself. When you actually weight train, so much of it has to do with breathing in and out. And as you're speaking, that disrupts a lot of your breathing patterns. So if you're trying to breathe correctly with a chest press or breathe correctly with a squat, and you're turning over and discussing something with somebody else, it's taking a lot of your lung capacity towards speaking and taking away from what you're trying to do, and you need that air for the weightlifting that you're doing. As he's failing on the shoulder press, Mark Wahlberg puts one hand up and spots the right side of his elbow because maybe the left side didn't either. This whole scene where they're training, it's like he's doing more venting and talking and explaining his life than he's focusing on the actual workout. So these types of gyms, like the Sun Gym, your classic Gold's Gym, that are like you would walk in there, it's like a 95% bodybuilder rate and everybody else is not. Those just don't really exist anymore. It's just an overwhelming amount of like the big box gyms. A bodybuilding style gym would be one where it's like they have less rules about taking your shirt off and posing. Some would have posing rooms. So my overall opinion about Pain and Gain, it gets me excited for bodybuilding. It gives you the fun atmosphere. Everybody in the gym's on the same page. The only thing that throws it off for me is the trainer not taking his client serious, and that's just a part of this movie. Everything else with Mark Wahlberg, The Rock, when he comes in later and trains, it's all spot on. I love this movie. Next up, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. All right, so we start out, we got Ben Affleck, Batman. Looks spot on, form. What I like about movements like this is if it is true, you're gonna see some muscles rippling, a lot of stuff tensed up. As he's swinging at you can see his lats and abs and core, everything engaged. So only a couple swings, but you could tell the work's being put in right there. Weighted pull-up scene actually looks pretty legit. He's controlling the rep all the way through, slow negative, explosive positive, but keeping it controlled. I'm seeing a little bit of slowing down when I should see a lot of acceleration on the positive, which makes me think he's doing a little bit more acting, but the form is spot on. It's just when you actually add the correct weight that is being portrayed in the film, it just looks like there's, you know, over 100 pounds of plates on there. There should be a lot more exhaustion looking. The positives going on the way up should be a little bit slower as he gets further in, but again, don't know how far into the set he is, but good form on the pull-ups. The best part about like all of these scenes is like he's in incredible shape. So work was definitely done. This is where I'm having a little bit of an issue. So he's doing the sled push. He's a little upright, but it just doesn't look as aggressive. So on something like this movement, it's a good push and momentum. So when you slow down, that's when that thing will stick, and you want to keep that momentum and drive and get it moving. And he just looks like he's pushing a baby stroller. It's hard. I feel like he would be down a little bit more. You'd have those grips a little closer to your shoulder, and you'd be pushing that thing as hard as possible. Same thing with this, I have to stop immediately. So he's doing a rope pull and there's a tire attached to it. Anybody who's done tire flips in the past, you know generally that's heavy. And he's pulling it with a rope on the ground, looks like cement, dragging it across a grippy surface, and he's very upright. That would be a very, very difficult pull to be standing upright. As he's doing this pull, a lot of your back muscles would be firing and popping during this movement. For what he's doing, I'm just not seeing a lot of work being put on these compared to the pull-up part. Bench press scene, just like the pull-ups, his chest is ripped, you see muscles moving, you see vascularity showing. He may be making it harder than it is, but the form looks good. I mean, he looks like bodybuilder form on that. You have so much weight on his back, you show him unracking it. If he did 3 or 4 reps, you just see him throw it off. So it's just giving you the idea that he just did all of that, but you don't see a rep being done. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 45s it looks like, and then chains at the outside going all the way down. That's over 700 pounds of weight on the bar. The bar's probably 45 pounds, if not a little bit more. And then you don't know how much the chain is, but it's like once you're off the ground with a squat and you have chains, as you go all the way to the ground, the chains coil up. So it takes all of the tension from what is on there with the chains away. So as you stand all the way up, all the chains come off the ground and it makes the exercise heavier as you get further and further away from the ground. All those chains and everything, I mean, it's gotta be like 900 pounds. And they made it seem like he just rocked that thing out. No problem. It's one of the more fake things that I've seen. So there's like a bodybuilding code where like if you fail and you can't control it and for some reason you drop weight, you know, that's one thing. The weight that he's doing, it looked like he stood up completely, walked out of the rack with that. If he got all the way up in the positive and stood up, he should have been able to walk that back in and he just threw it off his back. He's doing like the normal thing you would do to try to get out of this. I would never see somebody just like try to roll it back. Like you always try to pop one and just make sure I can get through and then you rip the other one around. But obviously that's what he's doing here with, you know, all that weight. It's to make it as dramatic as possible, but man, if you did that in like my gym and someone did that, I'd ask him to leave. I would say he's doing bodybuilding work, power work. He's working on getting stronger and he's doing high intensity interval training where he's pulling and doing cardiovascular full body work with the tire pulls, with the rope, and then the sled pushes. And bodybuilding, you use powerlifting moves and other bodybuilding moves to develop your physique in a certain way with different types of training. In powerlifting, you're focusing on making the mechanics of a movement as strong as possible, incorporating as much as possible to lift the most amount of weight. And where weightlifting, just general weightlifting, comes in is it is the combo of those two. It's just not taking it that far. You're using techniques in both powerlifting and bodybuilding that are just helping you in your everyday fitness journey. Overall view of like this training scene, this montage, I actually think it was pretty intense. You want it to be intense. He's Batman. Like, you want him to do 315 for 4 reps? No, you want him to do all the weight and the chains and the bands, and you want him to lift everything possible with no clips and no wraps. So the vibe that they put off in this was awesome, and I loved it. He's in great shape. It looks like Batman. Next up, Baywatch. These types of movements are so damn hard. Like the American Ninja Warrior, that's what they're doing on this course. Very endurance, performance based. He looks like a seasoned competitor. He has great shape. And when you see him go through it and you see the muscles firing, you know that it's not fake. A lot of people don't realize how hard body weight exercises are because they're not really in grasp of how heavy their body is. You have to train for this type of training and look like he got ready for it, because The Rock, who is in great shape, you know, I don't think you see him do any of this type of stuff. You see him do different moves later, but to get up there and hold yourself and crawl around like that, you can't just bench press, squat, and go jog 5 miles a day and expect to get good at walking along with pegs and holding yourself up. It's a very specific type of training that you need to get good at for this. The Rock is actually like 6'5", and I'm not sure how tall Zac Efron is, but you just have two different looks. The Rock is just a massive human, but Zac is very, very dieted down. He looks incredible. So everything here looks exactly spot on. It doesn't look easy at all. Like he's struggling. You want to keep your core engaged for a lot of exercises, letting your abdomen blow in and out with heavy breathing. I just like to keep it more controlled. A lot of people do. He was keeping it tight the entire time. You don't see his stomach blowing in and out the entire time. You could tell he just did some sets, or maybe he just did a couple of things on this, and they were trying to time this up because his shoulders are vascular, he's pumped up. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was doing, you know, a couple of those before each time that he dropped down to make the most intense appearance possible. You get into the tire flipping scenes, you see The Rock and Zac both in incredible shape, and it looks pretty spot on. They're lifting heavy tires. This is a prime example. You can compare this to the last video. These guys are lifting these tires. Look at how many muscles on their backs and the veins showing. Like, you start moving something that's that heavy, just go push up against a wall in your house. Push up against a wall in your house for a long period of time, and you'll start shaking. So imagine something that's hundreds of pounds that you're trying to move. It looks real when you're actually doing it. So these guys are actually really moving it. Tire flips are actually kind of sketchy because if you're not properly warmed up, having a slight bend in your arms while lifting a heavy tire like that, it's kind of similar to a deadlift, and you could pop your biceps. You think of that as cardio. Hey, I'm gonna get under this tire and just lift a couple 100-pound tire, and it is exhausting. But as you get more drained lower body and, you know, your cardio is going down, you're going to incorporate your arms more. And if your arms aren't properly warmed up because you're not training bicep, you might jump into that a little early and tweak yourself. This movement is so hard. That's a lot of weight on your back for just a squat in general. And this movement, they got it loaded up and they're walking for a distance. You can see when they're moving, legs, muscle, intensity, breathing. These don't seem like the kind of guys that want to take it easy. The Rock, after filming all day, you know, he'll go train. It's just ingrained in a lot of these people. So when they actually do intense stuff like this, they want to lift something heavy, because if you put the work in with your physique and it shows, and you get ready for something and you're proud of it, you want it to show off as intended to and actually perform, not just Photoshop things on and make it look pretty. You want your physique to perform. There's a lot of people that do this move in powerlifting and strongman, and it's an incredible amount of weight. Weight that, like, if you could comprehend, you'd be like, how is that even possible? They're both doing similar weight. We think it looks like the exact same weight. and The Rock's kicking his ass in it, and they're making it to build him up to be that guy. The type of training that The Rock and Zac Efron are doing in this type of a carry on your back like that, I would say it's more like a strongman type movement. Strongman is just a different type of competition, different than powerlifting, different than bodybuilding. Even the stuff where you're pulling the tire, they hold onto the rope and they'll pull a semi. They lift ungodly things that a normal person can, and they would probably do it with something like that. A normal person can grasp how heavy that is, but these type of training scenarios, you wouldn't see a guy getting ready for a bodybuilding show doing something like this. So bodybuilding competitions are all on stage. Back in the old days with Arnold, they used to test for your strength and your physique as well. But nowadays, you're gonna make your physique look as awesome as possible and then get on stage, and then you're gonna have judges critique your physique and judge you compared on the other people that showed up. No one's gonna ask a bodybuilder who just won first place to go test powerlifting and bench press and stuff. It's just how the sports have evolved, and bodybuilding now is just showing your physique. So on this one, the only thing that looks a little off to me is the fact that Zac Efron looked like he was really struggling like a little kid on that, which you know he was probably rocking those out, and that's the only reason that they made that look like that. Because usually the lighter guy could rock out so many pull-ups and blow past the dude who has a lot of mass. So they're trying to make Rock look as intense as possible. And trust me, The Rock could probably do just as many, but in that situation, I would have assumed that maybe Zac would have had more pull-ups in them. One thing that's very cool about watching how The Rock trains and Zac Efron, their physiques speak for themselves that what they're doing is working. But even The Rock, you watch how he trains, is very bodybuilding based. Like, he's not sitting there saying, I want to get as many pull-ups as possible. He's training to do controlled reps and all the way through. When they just get done with the pull-ups, you see The Rock go right into a flex, flares his traps, flexes his chest. That just goes back to bodybuilding. He used to do that in his wrestling days as well, but that's a most muscular pose. You would normally have your legs flex as well, but you would pose your legs and flex down, flaring your traps and your pecs, and it's just one of the mandatory poses in bodybuilding nowadays. So seeing The Rock do that, that's a pretty cool tribute to bodybuilders everywhere. Even when they are doing bodybuilding training stuff or strongman stuff, doesn't matter what they're doing, they're actually doing the work. And it's very impressive because anybody who gets into this kind of conditioning, if you've ever been like overly lean, like how Zac Efron has looked like he got cut up for this thing, and when you get down to lower levels of body fat that you're not normally like used to, it's extremely exhausting. There was hundreds of takes. He might have burned so many calories. He got in shape doing all this stuff. You can't look like this without taking stuff serious, and it's very impressive. Next up, stay hungry. Right off the bat and Stay Hungry, we have the podium turning all the way around. They face the audience. Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the greatest bodybuilders ever. Anybody who's seen Pumping Iron or familiar with some of the old school bodybuilders, you got Ken Waller, an incredible bodybuilder as well. Pumping Iron's a documentary on one of the last bodybuilding shows that Arnold ever did in 1975. It showed Arnold Schwarzenegger training in Gold's Venice down in Southern California, all out in the sun. You had Lou Ferrigno training on the East Coast. And then you had the Clash of the Titans, the two biggest guys in bodybuilding at the time, go head to head. It kind of gave you that scene into what bodybuilding was. This looks like your classic 70s, early 80s bodybuilding scene. There wasn't a lot going on. You see it nowadays, and it's in Vegas, and they have the Mr. Olympia behind it, and it's like this big production. Back in the day, it was auditoriums, and there was a curtain behind you, and you see these guys on stage. Not to mention back when Arnold and Franco were in Pumping Iron, there was only a few bodybuilders on earth. So all the bodybuilders who were usually at that competition who were a pro, all the other pros in the entire world, which there weren't very many, were there as well. Bodybuilding really morphed from the time that they're in right here. This is like the best time frame of bodybuilding ever. I like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then as bodybuilding progressed over the years, they stopped looking more like Arnold and Ken Waller here and looked freakier, bigger muscle. It wasn't so much about the tiny waist, broad shoulders, and the calves and having everything flow symmetrically. It was just kind of who could get the biggest. It just moved away from the flowy classic physiques of this. So this is perfect for that time. Bodybuilding is based off of a point system. So you walk out there, and if you can win a majority of the poses compared to the other guy, majority rules and you win. Just to keep it simple, let's say that there's 10 poses that Ken Waller and Arnold are about to hit, and Arnold wins 6. It doesn't matter if Ken Waller has 4 of the best poses that they've ever seen, and those 4 poses made Arnold look terrible, but if Arnold had a majority of the poses over the other guy, he will always win. It's the most aesthetically pleasing person. That's what it was back in the day. It was the most complete package. And just to make it as easy or as fair as possible, you had a bunch of different judges, different backgrounds. It's not all about like the biggest person. For example, Lou Ferrigno was a bigger person than Arnold Schwarzenegger, the first Incredible Hulk, for whoever was not aware. But Arnold was Mr. Olympia. He was the greatest bodybuilder of that time period, and Lou Ferrigno never beat him. There were certain things that Arnold had over him. Just because you're taller doesn't mean you're bigger in bodybuilding, you just have a lot more height. So let's say that Arnold's arms weren't as big as Lou Ferrigno's, but Arnold had more separation, more clarity, more complete arms compared to a bigger set of arms, that would win. But it's all depending on what the judges are going for.
I told you a while back, you can't grow without burning. I don't need this. Yeah, you do. Hey.
Basically, what they're doing in this movie is competing for Mr. Universe, which gets them professional title, which means they're allowed to compete at the Mr. O. Back in the day when Arnold and Franco were competing, you had a height class, so tall and short, and then the winner of those 2 classes would go against each other. Between Arnold and Ken Waller right here in this video, Arnold is in better shape than Ken Waller. Based off of conditioning alone, and you didn't see that, I would have picked Arnold no matter what. Ken Waller, when he won his pro card, he had some of the craziest condition I had ever seen in my life at the time when I watched Pumping Iron. So I know that Ken Waller can achieve that level of conditioning. It's just not in this video. I competed at 19 years old, 20 years old. I took a 6-year off season. Off season meaning you're continually putting on size, you're training, but you're not cutting down for shows. So you can't really put on any real progress unless you get into an off season and like stay away from doing shows and stay away from getting lean and eating enough calories that your physique can grow. So I did that for 6 years, and then I came back and competed and won that show. Basically, I try to hit all of my muscles within 6 days, 7 days, whatever your split may be. And that's gonna be hard, intense training. You're gonna go in there and hit chest. And then when you're done with that, you're gonna hit biceps. And then when you're done with that, you're done. It's not like you get done and you're like, well, I gotta run for 5 hours and make sure I get these abs. Bodybuilding is a calculated sport that takes place with months and months, possibly years out of prepping. When I get ready for something or a photo shoot, or these guys get ready for a bodybuilding show, it could be 6 months or longer that these people are prepping or having that show in their mind. It's a really complicated thing, but once you learn how to do it, it's actually a pretty enjoyable process. The training gets hard. You'll start really, really sitting there thinking, do I enjoy doing this? And it's a mental barrier too that you gotta break through, but it's difficult when the food starts going away. Everybody can go have a great workout when you have all the food in the world, but if you're starting to get to a point where you're dropping body fat and getting to lower levels and that food's going, it's all about mental toughness to see if you can even get through it. You see people nowadays overdo it. They do more bulking up to a heavier off season, so they have a lot of weight to lose. These guys back then, they ate clean, they wanted to stay in better shape. Like Ken Waller, although he has a little extra body fat on him, he looks incredible. And that's probably off season for him, which is most people's dream body. So the spray tans, Ken Waller doesn't have much of a tan on him. If you're pale and those bright lights are on you on the bodybuilding stage, the muscles don't show as well. So you want that darkness, the lines, the shadows, and the darker your skin can look, the more those lines can pop. Your entire body's covered in that paint. And it's a paint brush, they squeege it on you, and it stays for days too. So once you get done with the show, you jump in the shower and rinse it off. You look down, it looks like mud is coming off of you.
I'm not sure. I still got the form down here. Tell me if I'm doing this right. Is that it?
I never do that one.
I think what was fun about Arnold is he had the personality that nobody else had. Before he was actually a famous person, he had a charisma, he talked on film. To be a massive person, a lot of people see that as an intimidating thing, like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy, he looks mean. Arnold had an inviting vibe about him. Arnold and Ken and all these guys paved the way for just how bodybuilding has evolved over the years. Next up, Anchorman, Legend of Ron Burgundy.
4002.
Mr. Burgundy,
2003.
Helen said that you needed to see me.
Oh, Miss Koningstone.
It's just your classic bodybuilder. It's like a meat-headed guy would think that anything a girl liked was his muscle. The best part about this scene where he's doing the arm curls, he's like got his elbow up higher now. It's like it was down low, it was on his thigh where he keeps it the majority of the time, and then he starts curling like super high. It's like he's doing everything possible to get that right arm some work. The reason probably why he lifted his elbow is because he doesn't know what he's doing. Once you commit to a movement, like let's say I'm gonna do an arm curl, let's just say it's right here. once my elbow has found the position where I'm doing a curl, that's the movement and you don't move anymore. That's a general rule of thumb with bodybuilding. So in the beginning of this scene, his elbow is on his thigh, and that's where he chose to do it, which is still a little wrong on the form. You would have it on the inside of your thigh to use it as support inside of your shoulder. But in regards to that, it's like you would not move it anymore until that set is done. You get set up, I got 12 reps. You do those reps and then you're done. He starts out and he's just moving as he does more reps, and it's just like getting a lot of work on that right side. I think it's funny because right when he gets done, he drops the weight and he just does your classic ILS, imaginary lat syndrome, and he just puffs up like the right side. Like he's like, oh my God, you didn't see how many I just did. But it's so hilarious because any guy who goes and works out who's like who does that like fake like puff your chest up kind of a thing, I think he actually is lifting his weight, and that's why he's changing his form. That looks like a decent sized dumbbell, you know, maybe 20, 25 pounds, maybe even a little bit more. But if he just did 10, 15, 20 and he's not used to ever doing curls or working out, you'd feel that pretty quick. You do all the similar things to like adjust your elbow, change positioning, and you're doing everything possible to like keep this shot going. But it looks pretty authentic because just how he goes about it.
Oh, I could barely lift my right arm because I did so many. I don't know if you heard me counting, I did over 1,000.
There's rep ranges that you would stick to. Most of them sit somewhere between like 4 and 20, 4 to 8, 8 to 12, 15 to 20, somewhere in there. To do 1,000 reps, not in bodybuilding, it's not a common thing. You may accumulate a lot of reps over the course of a day, over a workout, but you would never sit down and do 1,000 reps for just one arm.
Just doing my workout. Tuesday's arms and back.
This is like the best part of it, because now he just changes to like a front raise. Legs are slightly up and he's just doing it out in front, not bringing it all the way down. Like you think he would take a break and then do like 1,000 and 2 like bicep curls for the left side. But no, he's just straight to shoulders on that right side. Form is not great. What's hilarious about this, he goes, Tuesdays are arms and back. Now he's doing shoulders. It's just like, I mean, in a bodybuilding world, you could like maybe biceps with back because you're doing a lot of pulling movements and then you're going to incorporate biceps with it. You could do triceps with chest because you're doing all these pressing movements, which your triceps are part of. He's just kind of doing whatever possible. It just sounds like he's trying to impress her and she's seeing through his crap.
You have your ubulus muscle that connects to the upper dorsimus. It's boring, but it's part of my life. I'm just gonna grab this shirt if you don't mind.
Ubulus, upper dorsimus, that's not a thing. The thing is, he's kind of generally pointing to everything, but he's like talking about this. Obviously, this is an over-the-top movie. Him sitting there doing 1,000, like it's meant to be funny. That's the point of this whole thing. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for part 2 of weight training scenes.